Now, something brilliant that I heard Andrew Tate say today is that the media is meant to prepare the population for the forthcoming news. And if that is applied here, then the reason why Ben Shapiro is bringing this up now is because insiders already know that he is about to pardon Chauvin. And so it's starting to prepare the public for that outcome. Oh, I got a banger of a video for you guys now. All right. So we got two stories we're going to cover in this video, and then I'm going to follow it up later with the most shocking video that I've done in months about the Trump assassination attempt. But in this one, we are going to talk about two stories. Like I said, we're going to do the Ben Shapiro is calling on Trump to pardon Derek Chauvin, who is rotting in prison thanks to the media. That's going to be a big story. And if we are going off of what Trump has done in the recent past, I don't think he cares about backlash anymore. If he thinks the majority of Americans want something, he's doing it. And I have a feeling this is exactly what's going to happen. And my goodness, everybody needs to buckle up. And I also have, actually, you know what? We got three stories because there's another thing going on about what Trump is calling for on college campuses related to activists who are throwing what he's calling illegal protests, and he wants them arrested, and he's going to stop federal funding to colleges who are allowing it. And we're going to get into that story, what I think about that, and then also, you know, it's directly tied to this because you can rest assured there will be biblical backlash to Trump doing this, which in my opinion is the right thing to do because why? Okay, we'll get into that, right? Why is this guy sitting in prison? And then also, but we're going to start with a different story, all right, which is this one. And this is unbelievable, you know? I mean, it's not even, calling it unbelievable is actually hilarious at this point because we're going to show these three posts, okay, from Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and Cory Booker. And you guys, we're going to compare them, and you guys tell me if they sound a little bit similar to you guys. Almost like nothing that comes out of the establishment is as it seems. Almost like they are being told what to do by some larger kind of macro organization that runs them all like actors, okay? Just like what Elon Musk says in his post right there. They are all actors reading a script, okay? And then just so we're clear on what we're talking about here, all federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came. American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. No masks. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, again, illegal protests, okay? Illegal protests. So Sam Tripoli is saying, please explain how this isn't a violation of the First Amendment. I agree with him. If we're just talking about regular protests, then yeah, this is one of those things. You got to make sure that the band doesn't swing too far back the other way. But nonetheless, and that is obviously going to be very relevant when we get into the Chauvin case. But we're going to start with this one right here. And by the way, if you have not subscribed to the channel, that's all I ask. If you watch my content, I just ask that you click subscribe. It takes 1 second. It's like the candy jar at the front of the store where it's like, we're on the honor system. Take the candy, leave the quarter. We're donating it to muscular dystrophy. Okay. The people who take the candy and don't leave the quarter are bad people. This is the relationship that we're on. You can watch all my content. I just ask that you click subscribe one time. It'll take you 1 second and it's free. I have a lot more content in members only. That is behind a paywall, but that's behind a paywall for a reason. And if you want to check that out, totally up to you. No pressure. Let's jump into it. Now, before we get started, a super quick call out to the sponsor of this video, Yo Kratom. If you don't know what Kratom is, don't worry about it. But if you are a Kratom user and you use every day and you want to buy in bulk, YoKratom.com is going to be your absolute best source. $60 kilograms. This is where I get mine. You will save an enormous amount of money versus buying it local. It gets to you in 2 days. You're going to love it. Check them out. All right. So let's go over here and let's start with this story here. Okay. So let's watch this real quick and then we're going to comment on it. All right. Check this out.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse, not better. The prices of grocery, gas, housing, eggs, of essentials is not getting better, it's getting worse. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has done nothing. Goose eggs to lower prices. Instead, he's pardoning.
It's just egregious, man. These people do not understand social media at all. They just don't get it, okay? You can't do this scripted nonsense and expect to have the ability to land with audiences the way that, I don't know, a person like Joe Rogan or anyone like me. Obviously, my reach is tremendously smaller than these guys, but like You can tell I'm a person who is telling you what I genuinely think. There's not someone giving me a script to read. Okay. Now, of course, I'm reading stories that might just solidify my position, but I think I have a pretty open mind to things. But the second that you hear me reading a script, you're going to know. That's why they're losing, aside from the fact that their positions are insane and indefensible. As soon as they lost a vice grip on information, they had no ability to retain this because this is so transparent. It's the same as the mainstream media. Have you guys ever seen those clips where they have like hundreds of local news stations saying the exact same thing just like this? It's just scripted programming. And Elon broke the matrix when he bought X. And that's what infuriates them. That's why you're seeing a constant bombardment of negative criticism of Elon. He broke their system with a single, people are like, oh my God, $44 billion, what an idiot. Do you understand how little money that is given the impact that Elon has had on the world? Let's continue.
Violent criminals who savagely beat police officers.
Letting Elon Musk take a chainsaw.
He's letting Elon Musk take a chainsaw to vital government programs, and then, even worse, giving him access to Americans' most sensitive data, Social Security numbers, tax returns, health care. He's fired thousands of essential workers, people who help our veterans get their benefits, people fighting Ebola in Africa so it doesn't come here.
Hilarious. You know what I mean? Talking point. Oh, they cut all the funding to Ebola. Okay. It's fighting Ebola, so it doesn't come here. You're like, wait a minute. I just want to make sure that I understand that your big talking point for why we should be concerned about USAID, which, by the way, is not aid. It's U.S. Association of International Development. Tricky words. Is some kind of, hey, be careful about viruses in the United States. Hey, how'd that aid go last time? Like here's what I'm saying, okay? Let's just look at how the pandemic went. You have a genetically enhanced virus that we paid to enhance that gets released upon the entire world, right? Now, what's the reason that they say gain of function is important? Oh, right, because then they can develop a cure to those enhanced viruses. Well, where was that, dude? Hey, where was that? So you got the virus part done, and somehow there was not any type of cure for it. And when you did launch, the preventative treatment for it, didn't have great results. So, like, what are we talking about? Hey guys, definitely be concerned about like Ebola coming here. I'm like, I am concerned about Ebola coming here. That's why we're cutting your funding. You know what I mean? Like, you guys. You look at history, what should make us more concerned about Ebola? You guys getting money or you not getting money? I mean, come on, dude.
Frozen funding for vital programs that so many American families need. Cancer research, education funding, payments to family farmers, and so much worse. Why are they doing this? Trump, Musk, Doge are taking these vital services away from you for one reason only, so they can give tax breaks to their billionaires club. Their plan is awful.
Amazing. So that's the story they're going with. The only reason they're cutting all these programs is so they can give tax breaks to billionaires. Oh my goodness gracious. Woo! That's what happens. Okay, look. This entire... Guys, this is not complicated, okay? Believe it or not, the whole like low taxes versus high taxes is a very simple concept as it relates to the economy, okay? If you don't tax as much, that gives corporations more money, which they can invest into growing their corporation, which leads to additional jobs. That is how that works. If you cut federal funding, or if the tax revenue goes down and you have to cut some jobs at the federal level, then those in many cases are going to be recreated, or more jobs created at the on the private sector because they have more money to play around with. The idea that they're just going, all this money is going to go straight into the pockets of billionaires. Do you think billionaires sits in a savings account? That's not how this works. Okay, they invest. All the billionaires are investing into things. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that it's always just cut taxes down to zero. Like, of course, there's a happy medium that I'm not going to pretend to know the perfect answer for. But this is what not that they're addressing all this gigantic fraud, waste, and corruption. You know, that's not why they're cutting this stuff. It's definitely because they just want, like Elon Musk just wants to pocket this money. Now, the billionaires who are funding this right here that you guys are doing, wouldn't they benefit from that? Wouldn't they be excited about these big tax breaks? Are you trying to pretend that there's not a billionaire who's running you right now and making you guys say this stuff? Give me a break.
The Republican plan is simple. Families lose. Well, billionaires win.
Oh, okay. Or the billionaires who run you guys have been raiding the tax base like a bunch of robber barons for the last however many decades. Okay? How about that? How about that option? Give me a break. Okay, so now let's move over to the Derek Chauvin story because that's much more important. All right, let's do this thing. The most controversial story potentially in the history of the world. Not history of the world. History of the United States, if he actually does this. Thanks to the power of the mainstream media, tricking people into believing that a career criminal, lifelong drug addict who was on an amount of admitted drugs that, I mean, I don't know, like everybody, you know, I'm pretty sure I've heard how multiple corners, like, yeah, anybody would have ruled this an overdose, right? Person who put the gun to the stomach of a pregnant woman in the middle of a robbery, right? That he's some kind of civil rights hero because during an arrest, you know, practicing trained techniques by the Minnesota PD, the guy who swallowed a bag of drugs to avoid arrest overdosed, and they convinced you that this was some kind of white supremacist act from a racist cop, although they showed absolutely zero evidence of that in the trial at all, because if there was any history of racism, I'm pretty sure you probably would have seen it in that trial, right? So Ben Shapiro calls on Trump to pardon Derek Chauvin, who was rotting in prison thanks to the media. The evidence demonstrates that Chauvin did not, in fact, commit the murder of George Floyd. Correct. On Tuesday, Daily Wire editor Ben Shapiro launched a campaign urging President Trump to pardon former police officer Derek Chauvin, who was convicted of killing Floyd in 2021. I completely agree with this, for the record. Following a discussion about presidential pardons on his eponymous podcast, eponymous? Hold on, I understood that. Anyway, Shapiro explained why. Yes, okay, call me an idiot. I don't care. I don't know what that means. Shapiro explained why Trump should pardon Chauvin of his federal charges. The evidence demonstrates that Chauvin did not, in fact, commit the murder of George Floyd. George Floyd was high on fentanyl. He had a significant pre-existing heart condition. George Floyd was saying he could not breathe before he was even out of the car. Fact. He was in the car saying he could not breathe. Fact. Derek Chauvin, for large segments of even the tape, was shown he had his knee on George Floyd's shoulder or back, not on his neck. The autopsy of George Floyd showed that he had no damage to his trachea, that probably George Floyd died of excited delirium. There were no accusations, even at trial, that Derek Chauvin had committed a hate crime against George Floyd or that he targeted George Floyd because of race. Let's listen to him say it, actually. I like listening to him.
If we are issuing pardons, however, there is one person that President Trump should pardon from federal charges forthwith. It would be incredibly controversial, but I think that it's absolutely necessary. That person is Derek Chauvin. President Trump should, in fact, pardon Derek Chauvin. He should pardon him his federal charges. If we are talking about reversing the evils of the last several years in American life, obviously COVID and its handling was a massive evil. Destroyed the economy, set us on a path to fiscal insanity, destroyed children, led to massive health-related cover-ups, just horrifying all the way around. And President Trump has taken on a lot of those things. But when it came to BLM, the inciting event for the BLM riots that caused $2 billion in property damage in the United States and set America's race relations on their worst footing in my lifetime, was in fact the railroading of Derek Chauvin in the death of George Floyd. The evidence demonstrates that Derek Chauvin did not, in fact, commit murder of George Floyd. George Floyd was high on fentanyl. He had a significant pre-existing heart condition. George Floyd was saying he could not breathe before he was even out of the car. He was in the car saying he could not breathe. Derek Chauvin, for large segments of even the tape that was shown, had his knee on George Floyd's shoulder or back, not on his neck. The autopsy of George Floyd showed that he had no damage to his trachea, that probably George Floyd died of excited delirium. There were no accusations, even at trial, that Derek Chauvin had committed a hate crime against George Floyd or that he targeted George Floyd because of his race. Nonetheless, on the basis of extraordinarily scanty evidence, and despite the fact that there was massive pressure on the jury, that the mayor of Minneapolis paid a settlement to the George Floyd family immediately.
Not to mention that a Black Lives Matter activist snuck his way onto the jury. And we all know it. This huge dude snuck his way onto the jury, this huge black dude, and that's relevant because the white jury is terrified of looking racist, and you got him in their ear like, we're going to convict this guy. He's bigger than them. It's a dude. They're women. They're white. Like, and he's scaring. You'd be terrified to be like, look, man, listen, I'm with the cause, bruh. But there is overwhelming evidence that this is not a murder. I'm sorry, dude. Like, I'm not going to convict this guy of murder when he didn't murder the guy. There is nothing compelling in this. You know what I mean? Like, that should have been enough for a mistrial instantly. Absolutely instantly.
That the President of the United States suggested that Derek Chauvin was guilty right off the bat. That the jurors were being openly threatened and admitted as much. Despite all of that, Derek Chauvin was convicted on federal charges and pled guilty to federal charges. Derek Chauvin should, in fact, be pardoned on that. We will be covering that a lot more in coming weeks because I think it is worthwhile to remember that there is a man who is rotting in prison because the media decided in the middle of 2020 that they were going to turn a tragic law enforcement stop that ended with the death of a man who had a significant problem with drugs and pre-existing health problems.
And was an arch criminal. Okay? If the guy's previous charges, like if they, the media had looked at this and they were like, what's his criminal record? They're like, well, he had just gotten out of jail for graping a bunch of children. Then you would think that would have stopped them. But given how they handled the Rittenhouse case, they don't even care about that, dude. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care about anything, okay? And for those of you who don't know, the first guy that Rittenhouse shot was a dude who had been released from prison literally like a day ago. And what was he serving prison for? Okay, graping 12-year-olds. And when you look at his prison record, this guy was a psychopath. He had so many violent infractions in prison, it was insane. And he, on video, told Rittenhouse he was going to kill him and dropped a bunch of N-bombs. And he's white. He was a white dude. And they somehow convinced the world that Rittenhouse had shot a bunch of black guys. They're evil, bro. They are evil people.
Into the raison d'etre of the entire 2020 election. And it led to vast chaos. It led to, again, the destruction of racial comedy in the United States, $2 billion in property damage, and a guy rotting in prison who the evidence demonstrates certainly was not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in that case. If we're going to talk...
How about just not guilty, in my opinion? I mean, yeah, certainly beyond a reasonable doubt, but just like straight up not guilty seems like the correct play here.
Talk about delivering pardons. President Trump, I think, should really seriously consider pardoning on federal charges. He can't pardon on state charges. Derek Chauvin, who is convicted of the murder of George Floyd. As I say, we will be covering this pretty extensively in the coming weeks. Right now, you should go to pardonderek.com and sign our petition asking President Trump to...
Boom. Hey, watch this, guys. Boom. I just signed that petition just now. So that is what I did. I suggest all of you guys go do the same thing. Now, I'm also going to go on to X here, and I'm going to reshare this because I think it's important. Okay? Boom. Repost. Let's go. It's got 5 million so far. Let's keep it rolling, But getting back to the... getting back to this story in general, I'm just going to make myself big for this part. All right. Like, this is wrong. Like, this is wrong. This guy's rotting away in prison and he is not guilty of this crime. And as much as people are influenced by groupthink and all that and the idea, oh man, people will lose their mind or whatever. It's like, dude, that doesn't matter. This is a massive injustice. Okay. This guy did not do anything wrong. He's a police officer who did his job. If you go watch the full arrest video, if you watch a full arrest video and you still think that it's highly likely that the result or the result that he died was because of the police officer's mistreatment of him, I gotta question your judgment, dude. And also when you find out that the guy got arrested like a year prior to that, had to have his stomach pumped because he swallowed a bag of pills when he was getting arrested. I mean, come on, you guys. You gotta be willing to stand up to what ultimately is going to be tremendous backlash. And speaking of that, we are now going to look at the last story of the day related to this, which is this one, okay? So Sam Tripoli, I think, fairly is asking the following question, right? Explain to me how this is not a violation of the First Amendment. Because what Trump said is he said all federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protest. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came. Jesus. You all right, Jesse? American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. No masks. Thank you for your attention to this. And he says, explain how this is not a violation of the First Amendment. Correct. Except that he said illegal protests. And so here you go. What's considered an illegal protest? No, that is the question. What makes it illegal? You know what I mean? Like I am erring on, like, when I read that, I was like, whoa, that is scary. Like that sounded a little scary to me, but here you go. Simple. This isn't that hard. If you break the law while protesting, it makes that protest and those activities illegal. If you wear a mask while breaking the law, it will compound the illegality. If you don't break the law, it won't violate the First Amendment. Okay, so that's the no masks thing. He's talking about Antifa, right? Or these people that want to cover their face and go and break stuff. That's what he's talking about. I think that's my interpretation. It's like, you don't get to just go out and break things. You don't get to burn things. You don't get to attack people. If you want to go out and wave flags and protest, do it, I think is what he means. I mean, that's how I would accept that. Like, if we're talking about people protesting, that doesn't seem, obviously that's not illegal. Now, where you get into gray area is, what about these protests that intentionally shut down events? Because now they're violating their First Amendment, right? Think about that. If they intend to stop someone from speaking on a college campus, then they are violating their First Amendments. Going in and just bullhorn. It's our First Amendment right to bullhorn in this bitch, man. You racist. You don't know his lived experience, okay? You don't know why I made my hair blue. Boo, 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 boo. It's the fuck up, So, listen, let me just make clear. My opinion on that is, if their protest is intended to shut down other legal events, that should be illegal. Because now they are violating their First Amendment rights intentionally. Okay, you have a right to free speech. So if there's an event and people bought tickets to it and people go and they show up and they come and sit down, they have the right to hear the person that they paid to speak or to watch speak. Now, if they want to come to the show, wait their turn, come up and go, you know what? I think that you're a fascist. And I think that Trump is the worst thing that ever happened to America. And I want to know why he thinks it's okay that blacks are dying at record numbers. It's like, well, I don't need to, go ahead. You can do that. You can spread your crazy ideas wherever you want, as long as you are not intentionally shutting down events. Because if it's not illegal, it should be. Anyway, that's what I got for today. I got a lot more stories coming, so buckle in. Bye-bye.